This has been quite a year. In March, we were faced with the worst public health crisis in 100 years. We've been dealing with COVID. We've been sheltering at home. And now it's October, Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and we know many women haven't been thinking about their health. So we've got to redouble our efforts and think about how do we keep ourselves healthy, therefore our families healthy. This is a time to celebrate survivors and to celebrate being a woman.
How many of you feel comfortable examining your breasts?
I used to do it religiously every month, but then I got complacent, and so I haven't been. I used to think, well, I'm getting a mammogram every year. Why bother? But I understand the importance of it, and I am going to go back to doing it monthly, whether it's on the 1st, the 15th, whatever. I'm just going to set a date and maybe have a friend who calls me or texts me and say, we're doing this tomorrow. Have you forgotten?
How about having your partner, your husband, examine your breasts? Does anybody do that?
I think that's important. Many men have said at the time of an appointment, I felt this. I knew it wasn't normal for my wife, and so I told her. So I think it's okay for your partner to be a part of keeping you healthy.
My cousin, who had a mastectomy, told me, she said, my husband found it. She said he always loved to fondle my breasts, and he said, something's off. And so then she went to the doctor, and true enough, she had a mass.
You and your partner, do you get like a candle, some oil?
Make it spicy. Right.
So not only should you or your partner feel your breasts, but you should look at them also to see if there is a dimpling or a change in the skin or a discharge from the nipple.
Yeah.
Have your siblings or your parents opened up to you about health issues they have? Are you aware of what's going on in the family?
I would say I think now it's become more accepted to talk about your health. But when I was growing up, you just didn't quite know what happened to Aunt Pearlie.
Right, you're right.
And I think that's so important for us to know because many cancers and many health issues can be passed from one generation to the other. So knowing what your grandparents had, what your aunts and your parents have, may be very important for what you should be doing in your life.
That's pretty common in our families, particularly Black families, that we don't talk about health, and everything's a secret. And
knowing your family history and actually having a medical journal to give to your children so that they can then give it to their children is really helpful, and I know we struggle to do that.
Before the age of 30, all women should have a discussion with their healthcare provider about when to begin screening. Women with a strong family history of breast or ovarian cancer, a history of previous breast biopsies, or a known genetic mutation should discuss when to begin screening with their healthcare provider. Recommendations vary, but some women will need to begin screening around the age of 25.
So let's keep it real, girls. How many of us started getting our mammograms when we turned 40? I know I did.
I did too.
Okay, good.
I was 45
45?
because the guidelines have changed.
I started getting mammograms at the age of 27 because I was just at the doctor and she said, Valita, I need you to start getting mammograms because I'm looking at your family history and your mother had breast cancer at 36. She said, so do me a favor, I want you to get mammograms every year around the same time, every January for basically 10 years, and at 37, I had breast cancer.
Do you have any other females in your family that, sisters, aunts, or cousins?
Yes, my mother and both aunts on my mother and father side. So it runs in the family. And of course, we also carry the gene mutation. So that's a 75 to 80% chance of getting breast cancer. Right. My mother, she didn't get tested until I was diagnosed the second time with breast cancer. The doctors really had to actually beg her to get this testing because they want to know how did I get this breast cancer a year and 5 days apart, twice. Wow.
twice on you?
Yes. Both breast cancers came from genetics. And with that gene mutation, I am exposed to ovarian cancer as well. So it's just important for us to let our families know, you know, our history, because this prevents us from maybe having to deal with our family members having to go through what we go through.
Right. That's very interesting.
Knowing your family history, kind of what we talked about before, is so important because your doctor rightly said you are high risk. There's a lot of confusion about when to begin screening. Do you begin screening at 40? Do you begin screening at 45? And we have guidelines that recommend all of it. The problem is those guidelines are predominantly based on clinical trials with white women. And African American women develop breast cancer at an earlier age, and a third of us develop it before the age of 50. So if we start screening at 50, we would miss a third of women who would not have the opportunity to screen.
We need to make sure women know that getting the screening now, even during COVID, is safe.
Oh, yeah.
Because there are, protections and sanitation and good hygiene practices are in place.
Yeah, I got mine this year after the pandemic died down a little bit and they started the screenings again. It was awesome. It was social distanced. I was in and out in literally 7 minutes. I'd never had a mammogram done that quickly.
When we make our appointments, we need to keep them because it's a lot of women that make appointments and then they just forget.
We're shuttling everybody else to the doctor, and then when it's time for us to shuttle ourselves, we don't go, or we
Find an excuse, or something happens.
We've got to start thinking about ourselves. And that's not being selfish.
No, that's right.
It's not.
And I think we should at least know that mammograms are x-rays, low-dose x-rays. Just living life, sitting outside, you get about 1.5 to 3.5 units of background radiation just from the sun and the earth a year. And a mammogram is just 0.4. So you just have to know that mammograms are not more risky than they are beneficial.
Mammograms reduce mortality by detecting breast cancer on average 2 to 3 years before a woman will feel an abnormal lump. Women who are average risk should begin screening at the age of 40. Get your mammogram annually.
But for some women, it's the fear of the cost. If they don't have a doctor, so how do I get this done? How do I pay for it? And then if they do find something, who's going to pay for that?
Right.
If they don't have insurance, that
Sure.
makes a huge difference. And then just the thought of, if I have breast cancer and I can't work, how am I going to take care of my family?
Especially if you're living from paycheck to paycheck.
Exactly.
Now you got to find a doctor.
Right.
You got to get an appointment. And if you don't have insurance, that is an astronomical cost.
adds to it.
And then it probably will be okay. So then you've wasted all that money that you could have spent on something more urgent. So I see your point.
And then the time off. A lot of us don't have paid time off.
The National Breast and Cervical Cancer Early Detection Program provides free breast and cervical cancer screenings to women who are uninsured in all 50 states and the District of Columbia. In Missouri, the program is called Show Me Healthy Women. Women can receive a free screening, and if an abnormality is found on the mammogram, further workup is covered. If a cancer is diagnosed, the women are enrolled in Medicaid, and all treatment and transportation is covered.
So for years, even before I was a physician, I always heard that white women develop breast cancer more commonly, but African American women died of the disease at a higher rate. But why do we think that? I'm just curious of why do we think there's a higher death rate in African American women from breast cancer?
I think it's disparity of care. It depends on what physician you go to, whether they, as she said, encourage you to get a mammogram or just let it slide by.
I think that's part of it, but I think really it's fear. I think a lot of women are afraid to go because they're afraid of what they may find out.
So there's a delay in diagnosis, a delay in detection, and the situation could be at a more advanced stage if you delay.
So the lack of knowledge is, I think, a huge problem when it comes to screening and making sure that you know where to go, what to do, how to do it, who to call. Their lack of knowledge is a key piece to it.
And and some women have that idea, well, I'm young, so it's not going to happen to me.
So it all depends on how you think about a mammogram. You go to get a mammogram to make sure you're okay.
Well, I'll tell you, there is no greater feeling than getting that letter in the mail that says everything is okay.
Right.
I literally do a happy dance every year when I get it.
And it also says, see you next year.
Yes, it does.
That's right.
It's true.
But no more mammograms for me.
What?
I don't have to have mammograms anymore. Like, at 37, I mean, I was diagnosed with breast cancer in my left breast, and a lumpectomy was done, radiation, and I started on tamoxifen for 5 years. The second mammogram showed breast cancer again in my right breast, along with taking tamoxifen. So basically the doctors told me, if you don't get your breast removed, you're gonna be looking at third cancer.
So you had both of your breasts removed before the age of 40?
I had both of my breasts removed at the age of 39.
You were screening more routinely every 6 months, completing a mammogram and enhanced screening with an MRI, but you had a mutation, a change in a gene that put you at higher risk for developing breast cancers earlier in life.
So, I mean, that makes it really important why you have to tell your story, and we have to get other women's stories out there, because just walking down the street and seeing you, we'd never know what you've been through just by looking at you. It makes the screening so important.
It's something I definitely didn't want for my life, but I'm alive, so I believe I'm supposed to tell my story.
So if we only, have, white women in trials, white women and black women don't look the same when it comes to breast cancer. So we have to participate in those trials, and that gets us to trust.
There are things that have happened that are baked into our history that are real. And that goes back to experimentation during when we were enslaved, to eugenics, and that was forced sterilization, and the Tuskegee experiment. So just feeling uncomfortable dealing with the healthcare system is an authentic feeling to have.
Should not be dismissed.
I just think having a relationship and really like your doctors and can talk to them, that's key. Because if you don't have that good relationship, I'm not going back. That's your first expression. I'm not going back.
That's true.
And then you have to think about, okay, who do I go to next?
We have to be willing to make a conscious effort to make an investment in our own health and take care of ourselves. And whatever that looks like and whatever that feels like and whatever that means to you, but find someone that makes you feel comfortable, because it's your health that matters. We've got to do more of that.
African American women have a 40% higher death rate from breast cancer than white women. But when breast cancer is found early, before spreading to regional lymph nodes and other distant organs, 5-year survival is over 90%, regardless of race or ethnicity. Early detection saves lives.
What can we do to reduce our risk of developing breast cancer?
I try to be active.
We're supposed to do, 30 minutes, 5 days a week?
Right.
Who actually does that?
I have not one, but 2 treadmills, and I had a third one, but I gave it to a girlfriend.
Okay, and your treadmills don't have clothes on them.
No, not at all.
I have a set time that I walk every morning.
Okay.
I get up at 6:30 and get moving, and I'm out the door by 7.
Okay, so the big question is, what do you do with your hair?
Well, I don't care about that.
I mean, really?
No, but really, and I realize that's an issue for
But
some
that's a big issue for a lot of women when you talk about exercise. It's like, but I just paid $70 for my hair,
exactly.
so I'm not going to exercise until it's time to go back to the salon.
But the beautiful thing about 30 minutes a day, 5 days a week, is it's just purposeful walking.
Right.
You don't have to jump in the pool or, run 5 miles.
Exactly.
It's 30, it's just 30 minutes of purposeful activity. We tend to do what I call weight creep, meaning every decade we can say, I put on 5 pounds those last 10 years, and you want to try to reduce that and maintain your weight. year after year.
And and maintaining the weight isn't just the regular exercise, but we have to be cognizant about what we're eating and making sure when we talk about prevention with our children, particularly our girls, getting them in the habit of eating fruits and vegetables, getting them in the habit of regular exercise. Because even though we've been talking about getting that screening mammogram, we want to prevent this.
Yes.
Right.
So that when they go for their mammogram, it's like, well, I've been doing what I'm supposed to, so there's a low risk for me. But we have to get them in that mindset early on. Smoothies makes it really easy because you can put, a couple of servings of fruit and then drop some, kale, spinach into the smoothie, blend it all up, and it tastes great. And so you're getting what you need in a compact size.
Exactly.
And the way to get all of those 5 to 9 servings in a day is to start with breakfast.
Yes.
If you're scrambling eggs, you can put some spinach in it.
So one of the other increased risks for breast cancer is drinking more than 1 alcoholic drink a day. So I'm just wondering, is that a problem for anyone around the table, or is that easy?
More than one a day? Some days. Some days.
Some days are hard like that.
I may need 2 glasses of wine.
Instead of
Some
1.
days I may need 3 glasses.
I just want to know if I'm like not drinking on Thursday and Friday. On Saturday, can I have 3 drinks?
No. We tell ourselves it works that way, but
I think as women, that's the one thing that I think women don't admit to. Not saying that nobody's not admitting anything, but when you ask women about drinking, women tend to underestimate how much they're actually drinking.
You don't want to be judged.
No, exactly.
To stay healthy, consume 5 to 9 fruits and vegetables each day. Exercise 30 minutes a day, 5 days a week. Maintain your weight, and ideally abstain from alcohol, or limit yourself to no more than 1 alcoholic drink per day.